Well, here I am again. Imagine that. Well, any day I'm able to get on the camera is always a good day. I'm on my horse. Not really. Today I want to pay tribute. Hey, check that out, man. That's Nevada Michael Walden, by the way. I'm going to eventually talk about him at one point. He is totally amazing. He actually took Billy Cobham's place. Check this out. This is totally amazing. Am I a singer or am I a singer? Anyway, let me kill this. By the way, right, I know, the melodies, right, to a lot of the music, right, that I listen to, not really that I'm really a singer, but you just kind of get to know those melodies. But it's influenced my writing in a lot of ways. But anyway, let me talk about who I'm paying tribute today. I'm paying tribute to Sir Louis Bellson. Now, I don't know right where he got the Sir from. I think at one point, probably the Queen dubbed him Sir, like Sir Elton John, Sir Paul McCartney. I guess when you do really cool things, you get dubbed Sir, and that's a really cool thing, because that's what they started to call him later on in his fantastic career. I don't know too much about the history of where Louis Bellson started, but I will tell you my experiences in seeing him and listening to him and watching him and listening to him in many of his interviews. First off and foremost, right, you watch Louis Bellson. I mean, there's a lot of clips of him online. They never did like a jazz legend dedicated to him, and they probably should have. Maybe at one point the right DCI or whatever company put together those jazz legends, because they only had a jazz legend on Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa. Buddy Rich was part 1 and 2. Gene Krupa was just 1. But yeah, that would really be a good thing to see eventually. Maybe one day somebody will do that. But in any event, let me pay tribute to Louis Bellson, Sir Louis Bellson. The first time, right, that I became really aware of him and his amazing work was when the Long Island Drum Center invited him to give a clinic. I think it was definitely at a VHW hall. It was really, really amazing. I think it was also, too, it might have been Billy Cobham there, too. I'm not sure, but I know Billy Cobham gave a clinic, too, at about that time. I'm not sure if the two of them gave a clinic together. They did play together, though. I'll tell you about that in a moment. So that was the first time that I actually saw him. And he was unbelievable, right? He was just unbelievable. But there were a lot of things that he did that really influenced me tremendously. First off, right, Louis Bellson was the first drummer to actually use and conceive the double bass drum. Nobody had done it before. And the way that he came up with the idea, I've mentioned this in other places, I learned this from an interview. Louis Bellson and his lovely wife, Pearl Bailey, were on Tom Snyder. And it was like, those were the days of late night. Tom Snyder, right, he was amazing. He had like the most amazing people on his show. I remember once he had Kiss on his show. He really interviewed, right, a lot of really cool people. So they were on his show. And I think about Tom Snyder was talking to him about how he got started. And Louis Bellson said that his father had owned a music store. And, drums was definitely it. That's what he wanted to do. So, but when he took up the drums, when he was in elementary school, or I don't know what grade, he had an art project. And so what he did was he drew the concept of the double bass. In other words, he actually drew a picture of the conceivability of the set, of how it would be set up. And that was his art project. And I don't know what grade he got on it, but the fact that he conceived that was like pretty cool because it had never really been done before. And this is a quote from Louie Bellson. He said that when he went to the drum companies to talk to them about the idea and developing it, and I don't know, you had to, if you were going to play double bass, you had to probably get a certain hardware right to get the hi-hat closer to the bass drum, and I think he went to one of the drum companies with that idea, and they told him right to go to the moon with Will Rogers. That's what Louie Bellson said. But it worked out fine because he began playing that, and his concept of right was he really only used the double bass in solos. When he was actually playing in regular playing settings, he didn't really use the double bass drum too much because most of the music that Louie did in the very beginning was jazz. But in any event, at that clinic, it was really, really amazing. He played a really rather lengthy drum solo. I don't remember the exact order, right? But he worked with brushes, he worked with mallets, he worked with the ching sticks, which was his invention. I think there was a guy, Mike Balter, who had created the drumstick for him, and it has his name on it, and they were called the ching sticks. I think they were the original sticks. I don't think that Mike Balter makes them anymore, but it's a really, really cool concept. When I say ching stick, it was 2 tambourine bells, hooked on right to a nail and then embedded into the drumstick. I tried to right actually making one, but I nearly took my hand off trying to screw the thing in, so eventually I was able to get some pairs of those. I knew I definitely wanted those. I don't have those anymore. I have to get another pair. But so his solo right was like almost sort of like a symphony because he did like different things. Louie Bellson had a big band. I think it was called the Louie Bellson Explosion. And similar to Buddy Rich's big band, I don't know if it was the same size. It might have been a little bigger. I really don't know the exact amount of pieces, but I'll tell you one thing. Louie's arrangements were a little bit different than Buddy, but it kind of fell into that sort of thing. And he also combined some of his elements with sort of like a rock arrangements, but they were kind of rocky jazzy because, Bellson was primarily a jazz drummer. I think that Louie Bellson played with Duke Ellington, played with a lot of people, but eventually he went on to have his big band. Another thing I read about Louie, which a lot of you may not know, and you can probably see it on YouTube if you search. Type in Louie Bellson plays on The Tonight Show. Once in a while, when Eddie Shaughnessy couldn't make it, maybe went on the road, I really don't know, because Eddie Shaughnessy was also, too, very big studio drummer out when The Tonight Show was in L.A. Well, actually, The Tonight Show was in New York, and then eventually went out to L.A. But nevertheless, once in a while, when Eddie Shaughnessy couldn't make it that night, because they shot the show, I don't know if it was 5 days a week or 3 days a week, I really don't remember when Johnny Carson had the shows on, but so when Eddie Shaughnessy couldn't make it, Louie Bellson sat in. There were some other guys that sat in also too, but I always remember when Louie sat in. And when he sat in, he really drove that big band. Totally amazing. I don't know right if when he sat in with The Tonight Show, if he played on Eddie's drums or he had his own drums. I really don't remember. Guys, let me know on that. You can see the clip on YouTube because there was one performance. And Johnny Carson actually introduced him and featured, once in a while, right, when he was on, right, Johnny Carson would acknowledge that he was in the band. Thank you, for coming to fill in, we take a bow. But one time he was featured, and it was totally amazing. Johnny Carson introduced him, and he played an arrangement with the band, and it's on YouTube, and pretty amazing performance. The other thing also, too, that Louie Bellson did when he was actually giving those clinics, he played it on Broadway, Jerry Ricci's club. For those of you on Long Island, you may remember that. Wow, what a performance. I mean, he had George DeVivia on bass. I don't know the other guys, but I do remember he had George DeVivia on bass. George DeVivia played with everybody. I met George, right, a little bit later down the line. He was doing some kind of a jazz club date a little later on. I don't know if he's still with us. He was really amazing bass player. But anyway, at the On-Broadway gig, I went up to Louis and I said, wow, I said, those chain sticks that you have, all right, or those sticks with the bells on them, all right, where did you get them? And he told me, right, that Mike Walter had made them for him. And I said, well, they're really cool. I said, you know what? He says, go ahead, go up there and take a pair. So I went up there, and they were on his bass drum, and I took a pair. I actually had a pair of Louis Bellson's chain sticks, and I decided I didn't want to use them because I wanted to save them. And so eventually I got a hold of Mike Walter and purchased a couple of pairs, and I saved those. And I don't know what happened to them. One of them, I lost. I have no idea what happened to them. You guys know I lose everything. So one of them I lost, and then I had another one. And there was a guy, right, who I think I was teaching at the time or just had run into somewhere. He was a stick collector of famous drummers, and he had Bonham's stick, he had Carbon's stick, Buddy Rich's stick. And so I said, well, listen, I said, I have an original stick that Louis Bellson gave me. Would you like it? So I figured I'd give it to him, right, because I only had the one stick, and it would be part of his collection. So I gave that to him. I don't have that anymore. Other cool thing about Louis, I wrote him a letter. Care, right, of Modern Drummer. I obviously didn't have his address, and they forwarded it to him. And what I did was I just sort of, told him about how I really enjoyed his clinic and whatnot. And I sent him a copy of my book at the time. And I asked him, a couple of questions and whatnot. And I got a letter, I can't believe it, I got a letter back from him from some hotel, Marriott Hotel. I guess he was on the road. And he responded. I don't really remember exactly what the letter said, but he did say, right, that my notation in the book was a little bit different than what he was used to seeing. Didn't really comment too much on the book, but I thought it was really impressive that such a famous star took the time to, write me back. And that's the way that Louis Bellson was. He was a really, openly friendly type of guy. I mean, you could approach him. And I remember seeing him, that's like personality. Not everybody is like that, so you got to kind of be astute to find the guys that are like that'll really talk to you. Not that some famous drummers are not nice people, but some guys are a little shy, a little quiet. But he was always really outgoing. And I remember seeing him at the Remo show. It was like a Remo exhibit in the city. A lot of famous people were there. Max Roach was there. I got to meet him. And I saw Bellson again. I said hello to him again. It was like really, really cool. We didn't have that long of a conversation that day. I don't know if he was demonstrating at that clinic or he was just there. But he had a relationship with Remo. The other thing, that made Louis really, really unique was his, first off, if you listen to his technique, the guy was a total monster. I mean, he did things, that were, unbelievable. He had, really, really fast singles. He didn't really have, the machine gun kind of singles that Buddy had, but his solos were different. Where Buddy's singles, were more staccato. And I think, also, too, Louis Bellson played on these drum skins. They were fiber skins. They were very similar. They don't make them anymore. They were very similar to the calf skins, but they sounded kind of like the fiber skin. They stopped making they sounded like the calf skin, but they were called the fiber skin. And they don't make, I really like that, the way those felt, because I eventually got one on a snare. The only problem, though, with the fiber skin is it started shedding, because it was made out of fiberglass, and I guess whatever was in it, it just started to break up, and the stuff would get all over the place. So maybe that's why they went out of business. If they could have figured out a way to... But anyway, so he told me about that, And the last thing I want to say is Belson, as well as put out a lot of records, he had a lot of records. The only one I ever was able to get was the Explosion, which was the Louis Bellson Explosion. It really, really was great. The last thing that I want to say is Louis Bellson obviously had a relationship with Billy Cobham. I think how that happened was they did a clinic together. I don't know if I was at that clinic, but I know that they were both doing clinics together at one time. And there's a performance. You can see it on YouTube. It's somewhere on DVD. I had it. I don't have it anymore, unfortunately. If anybody has a copy, I'd love to have a copy of that. It's called, I think it's called Mr. Bellson Meets Mr. Cobham, or Mr. Cobham Meets Mr. Bellson. And it's a concert, right? I mean, they had, with a giant big band. It was bigger than a 16-piece band. It might have been like maybe like Phil Collins' band. It might have been like I don't know how big his band is. It looked like it could have been a 25-piece band. It just seemed a really big band. And it's on film, and it starts off with these arrangements, and they take solos, they trade fours. Oh man, it was like unbelievable. And I think the coolest part about it, is this Cobham, his response to Bellson on stage. There was a lot of love between the two of them. It wasn't really a drum battle. It was more of a drum admiration of each other, because I think Cobham, if you look on the film, was awed at what Bellson was doing. And I think it was the other way around, that Bellson was awed at what Cobham was doing, because they were both geniuses, and Cobham is still a genius in their own right. Bellson was a little bit older than Billy Cobham at that time. And that's a really good film, if you can definitely check that out. And those are my basic experiences, Bellson also, too, he put out some instructional things. There was a video, I had it, I don't have it anymore. It was kind of like he was talking about how to play arrangements. One of the things with Bellson that was a little bit different from Buddy is he did instructional videos, whereas Buddy never really did anything like that. Not that Buddy couldn't have, but Buddy never really got involved in the educational point of view of that. And Buddy only gave one clinic, which maybe I'll tell you guys about sometime. I have that on film too. Actually, Mitch has that. It's very, very rare. I have to try to recopy that. But anyway, so that's my basic story about Sir Louis Bellson. I hope you found it useful, and find as many recordings and as many concert presentations as you can on Sir Louis Bellson. I think you'll really, really be impressed. Oh yeah, one other thing. He also used to use the cowbell a lot, and he had a rototom set up to the right. And sometimes when he played on the rotos, I don't know if he had 2 or 3. They were bigger ones, and he would kind of play them with his right hand and then turn it to kind of make it sound like it was varying in pitch. It was a really, really cool technique. Also, too, Bellson did a lot of really, really fancy cymbal work, kind of similar to what Buddy did, but a little bit different. I think Bellson used more doubles, whereas his Buddy used more singles. So it was a completely different type thing. And I don't know if they ever made an album together. I think they might have, but I'm not really aware of that. Would have been some album, would have been some concert, but the two never really played together on a stage that way. Lastly, Bellson, let me pause this, participated in the quite a few of the tributes, the Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship tributes. He was invited to the very first one, which the Long Island Drum Center hosted, and then the one that's on film, he was on that one, and his performance was amazing on that. That was, at that time, he was a little older in his career, and I don't know actually when he passed away exactly, but it was a while ago, it felt like, and I miss him. I really was hoping to get to see him more times, though I only saw him just a handful of times. But, you know, it just goes to show, right, that like really, really top worldwide international people can really be nice, you know, and he was really nice to me. And one of these days around, I got to dig that letter up. I have it somewhere in storage, and maybe I'll read it to you guys. It was really cool, you know, because it was a 2-page letter. I mean, the guy, and he wrote it, you know, it wasn't the right, like, you know, one of those fan things that you get from guys. He actually wrote it. I was impressed, and I'm still impressed, and thank you.